a dark narrative cinematic script with kinetic typography. I saw my name carved on a tombstone that doesn't exist yet. And it wasn't in a dream. It was at Tomb 7, 3 in the morning, alone, the flashlight shaking in my hand. And there it was. My full name, correct date of birth, date of death, tomorrow. If you're watching this now, it means I'm still alive. For now. Or it means it already happened. And this recording is all that's left. Leave a like. Not for me, but because this story can't die with me. It needs to survive, it needs to be told. Because there are 7 tombs in this cemetery that should never have been opened. And I was paid to guard every single one of them. My name is David Kraus. I've worked as a cemetery guard for 11 years. And this is my confession. Nobody chooses to guard cemeteries. This profession chooses you. When all other doors close, when you have nothing left to lose, when the silence of the living hurts more than the company of the dead. That's how I started. November 2014, first night. St. Benedict Cemetery, back gate, a rusty key, an old coat, a flashlight that flickered every 10 steps. The supervisor told me 3 things. First, never enter the east wing after midnight. Second, if you hear voices, ignore them. They're just late visitors, they always are. Third, never, under any circumstances, open the door to the chapel of the forgotten. I asked why. He looked at me like I'd asked why the sky is black. At night, and said only because you won't like what you find inside. I signed the contract, not because I was brave, but because cowards don't ask questions. The first weeks were silent, 12-hour shifts, midnight to 6 in the morning, alone, just me. The twisted trees and endless rows of cold stones. You learn things about yourself when you're alone this long. You learn that fear doesn't come from the dark. It comes from what you start to imagine inside it. You learn that silence is never. Total. There's always something breathing behind it. And you learn that the dead aren't the problem, the living are. People show up in the middle of the night. They always do. Some crying, others drunk, some just sitting, staring, waiting for something that will never come. I let them. It wasn't my job to expel anyone's pain. But there was one rule I followed strictly from day one. Never enter the east wing. That part of the cemetery was different. The trees were more twisted, the air denser. The ground sank in some places, as if something was pulling the earth from below. And the 7 tombs. They were there, aligned, no flowers, no plaques, just numbers 1 through 7 engraved in darkened bronze. Nobody visited those tombs, nobody cleaned them, nobody talked about them. But every month, without fail, a priest would come, always the same one. Father Aurelius, white hair, trembling hands, hollow eyes like empty holes. He would enter alone. He carried a small flask. Holy water, I imagined. And he prayed. He didn't pray like someone asking for salvation. He prayed like someone asking for forgiveness. I asked once who was buried there. He looked at me with that look that erases any curiosity and said, people the church couldn't save, and people God didn't want to receive. It was a Thursday, 2:20 in the morning. I was doing my usual rounds when I heard it. A voice, low, almost a whisper, coming from the east wing. It wasn't the wind. I know the sound of wind. I know. The creaking of trees, the rustling of dry leaves on tombstones. This was different. It was a human voice. But it was saying things no human should know. It was saying my mother's name, the full name, with the accent, the exact way she pronounced my name when I was a child. I stopped. The flashlight trembled in my hand. I rationalized. Someone broke in, someone's testing me, someone found my file and is trying to scare me. I moved toward the voice. It stopped. I reached the east wing. Empty. Just the 7 tombs, silent, motionless. And then I felt it. Someone was watching me, not from far away, from close, right behind me. I turned slowly. Nothing. Just fog. I went back to the post, wrote in the report, possible intruder. No visual confirmation. But my hand shook so much I could barely hold the pen. 3 nights later, it happened again. This time, it wasn't a voice. It was a dragging sound, like someone was dragging something heavy across the earth, something wet. I followed the sound. It was coming from Tomb 3. The tombstone was intact, the ground around it firm. But the sound continued. It was coming from below, from inside. I put my ear to the ground, and I heard it clearly. Nails scratching wood from inside the coffin. I jumped up, heart exploding in my chest. I called the supervisor. He answered with an irritated, sleepy voice. I explained. He laughed, said I was hearing roots growing, or rats. There are always rats. I hung up. But I knew. It wasn't roots. It wasn't rats. It was something trying to get out. I started investigating on my own. I searched through old archives, parish records, everything the church kept locked in the administration basements. It took weeks, but I found it, a sealed document. From 1953, 7 names, 7 crimes, 7 secret executions. They weren't ordinary people. They were members of the clergy, priests, nuns, a bishop, accused of heresy, possession, pacts with forces the church couldn't name. They weren't judged publicly. They were silenced and buried in that wing, without rituals, without last confession, without forgiveness. The church tried to erase their names from history, but couldn't erase their souls from the ground where they were buried. I returned to the East Wing armed with this information, and this time I brought a camera. I wanted proof. I wanted to show the world what the church hid. I positioned the camera in front of Tomb 3, turned it on, and waited. 3 in the morning. The sound returned, louder, more urgent, scratching, pounding, a muffled scream. I looked at the camera, the red light still blinking. It was recording, and then the earth began to move. It wasn't a tremor. It was a slow sinking, as if something was being pulled back, as if the ground was breathing. I backed away. The tombstone of Tomb 3 cracked in half, and from inside the crack came a hand, pale, thin, with blackened long nails. It opened slowly, as if testing the air, and then it closed into a fist and disappeared back into the earth. I ran, didn't look back, didn't grab the camera, just ran. When I reached the post, I locked the door, pushed a table against it, shook until dawn. The next day, I went back. The camera was gone. The earth was smooth, intact, as if nothing had happened. But I knew, and now you know too. After that night, I changed. I stopped sleeping properly, stopped eating, started writing everything down, every sound, every shadow, every second of every shift, because I realized something. The events weren't random. They followed a pattern. Tomb 3, then Tomb 5, then Tomb 1, always in different order, but always repeating. And with each event, I felt that something was studying me, measuring me, preparing me. For what, I didn't know, but I was about to find out. 2 weeks later, Father Aurelius didn't show up. For the first time in years, he missed the monthly prayer. I called the parish. They told me he had gotten sick. Serious. Wasn't receiving visitors. I insisted, said it was urgent. The secretary hesitated, then whispered, "He's delirious." Repeats the same 7 names over and over and begs for forgiveness. I hung up. That night, something different happened. All 7 tombs started emitting a sound. At the same time, it wasn't scratching, it wasn't pounding, it was singing, low, guttural, in Latin. I recognized some words, phrases from ancient prayers, but distorted, inverted, as if someone was praying backwards. I knew I shouldn't, but I went there. With the flashlight, with a cross I found at the post, with a recording on my phone. I needed proof. I needed someone to believe. I reached the east wing. The 7 tombs were intact, but the singing continued. And then I realized it wasn't coming from below, it was coming from above. I looked up at the sky, and I saw 7 silhouettes, suspended in the air, above each tomb. They weren't solid, they were made of fog, of shadow, of something that was no longer flesh nor spirit. They looked at me, all at the same time, and the singing stopped. The silence that came after was worse than any sound. One of the silhouettes descended. Slowly, it floated until it was inches from me. I couldn't move. It had no face, just emptiness. A hole where there should have been eyes, nose, mouth, and from that emptiness came a voice. It wasn't deep, it wasn't high. It was all the voices that ever existed speaking at once, and it said, "You see us. Finally, someone sees us." I couldn't respond. It continued. We didn't ask to be forgotten, didn't ask to be buried without a name, without forgiveness, without peace. I muttered something, I don't know what. Maybe an apology, maybe a prayer. It moved closer and said, "You will tell our story. You will make the world remember we existed. Because if you don't, your name will be the 8th. And then it disappeared. They all disappeared. I was alone, in the dark, with the flashlight off and the phone dead. I walked. Back to the post without feeling my legs. I sat down, wrote everything down, and then I saw, on the wall, written with something that looked like ash, or earth, or something worse, 7 names, the same 7 names from the 1953 document, and below them, in larger letters, my name, David Kraus, with a date next to it. Tomorrow. I'm recording this now because I don't know if I'll wake up tomorrow. I don't know if this confession will be heard. I don't know if anyone will believe. But I have to try, because I realize something. They don't want to kill me, they want me to tell, they want the world to know they existed, that they suffered, that they were erased, and if I fail, if I disappear before finishing, then this story dies with me, and they return to oblivion and everything repeats with someone else, another guard, another midnight shift. That's why I'm asking, subscribe. Not for me, but for them, because there are more recordings, more confessions, more shifts. That haven't been documented yet. And if you stop watching, if this story is forgotten, then they come back, and this time, they won't just choose a guard. They'll choose someone closer. Maybe you. I'm going back to the cemetery tonight. I'm going to Tomb 7, the only one that hasn't manifested yet. And I'm going to do what they asked. I'll tell their stories, one by one, without omitting anything. 7 confessions, 7 sins the church tried to bury. If I can, if I survive, you'll hear. Everything. But if this is the last recording, if my name appears in the missing persons records, then you'll know. Tomb 7 finally opened, and I was the 8th. Leave a like, share, subscribe, not for engagement, but because this is the only way to keep these souls alive. and to keep you off the list. My name is David Kraus, and if you're hearing this, it means it's already too late, or that there's still time. You decide. See you on the next shift, if I'm still here. End of Confession 1. Of 7, the 7 most unholy graves ever guarded will continue. Next confession, Tomb 1, the priest who prayed to the devil.